Welcome to the Motorsport Review. I'm your host, Perry Brown, and we're here to talk about the Formula One AWS Gran Premio del Made in Italy del Emilia Romagna 2025 at the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. I made it through all of that, otherwise known as the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix at Imola, as it's so often known, and to some of us old hands, maybe just the San Marino Grand Prix. Yes, quite a mouthful. But I managed to get through it. And so the rest of the podcast cannot go wrong. And joining me this week, once again, 2 in a row, is Louis. How are you doing, Louis?
Hello. Thanks again for having me. 2 in a row might be the limit where you think, okay, that's enough. I don't need you here anymore so soon. But thanks
Never.
again for the invite.
Never at all. No, thank you so much for joining me. Obviously, we're here, as I said, to talk about I was going to say it straight away, San Marino Grand Prix. You cannot tell me otherwise. It's the San Marino Grand Prix. Perhaps the last, at least for a while. Maybe it'll come back with a new, longer name in the future. But for now, contract ends in 2025. And if this was the last one, then quite an entertaining race. I think you'll agree, Louis.
Yeah, there are some points on the race that really annoys me in regards to Imola as a circuit, but that's something we can discuss along the podcast. But yeah, I agree. There's some really nice narratives that we can take from this race, especially in regards to upgrades that the teams brought to the circuit. Now, granted, if we take all the races that we've done so far this season, Imola is probably the outlier, I must say, because Red Bull performance was off the charts. Nobody was expecting. So it suited the Red Bull car because we already know the McLaren has the biggest strength of that car is the tire preservation and slow speed corners and acceleration out of those corners. Red Bull is better on medium to high speed corners, which is basically Imola all around. And they can take some curbing, which McLaren still feels a bit not too comfortable taking so much curbing like you need to in order to get a lap time around Imola. And alongside that, we had the C6 compound tire that Pirelli introduced, which still need a lot of work, is not on the point it should be. Because in theory, they wanted to make a two-stop race. Technically, it was, but we got the safety car in it. Shame that the tire feels like it's way too sensitive to temperature, and the grip just vanishes. As you see throughout the qualifying, many teams ran medium tires, like Mercedes and Aston Martin, most noticeably out of the other teams, and they got really competitive lap times. And if you look at the average to the telemetry of the cars, the difference between the soft C6 tires and the mediums, which is the C5, the difference is around 2/10 tops. So it's very small gaps between everybody.
Yeah, they couldn't keep the soft tires over even one lap. So it was like, do you go for sector 1, sector 2, or sector 3, and sort of hang on for dear life for the rest of it. So it was interesting watching, even from Q2, the Aston Martins getting through on mediums and then going into Q3 and Russell looking at that strategy and going, actually, that's not a bad shout. And it did pay off. And for him, he started third place, I believe, for this one. So yeah, it worked well. Let's talk a little bit about the intro to this race, the upgrades you mentioned. Red Bull, they really hit the nail on the head. They gave us an update. They said don't think too much of it, and it was a bit of a McLaren copy in parts. Aston Martin had the biggest upgrade, and I think we saw that in their performance. McLaren had a little upgrade. I think there was only 2 teams that didn't bring anything to Imola, being the first European race. So yeah, Aston Martin biggest upgrade, but Red Bull in terms of hopefully sparking the championship fight, because as I said, I'm a McLaren fan, but if we've got more cars racing at the front for wins, then that's better for the sport overall. And McLaren passing their intensive scrutineering as well. Yes, it does turn out that they're not putting water in their tires, amongst other things. So yet again, McLaren under scrutiny for that. Did you ever think they were putting water in the tires, just out of interest?
Actually, no, because if you take well over a decade ago, there was the same exact theory about Lotus before it was called Alpine, they were putting water on their tires, because if you remember the period of 2012 and 2013, those tires became like granules and full of marbles in what, 2 lap stops during the races,
Yeah.
and the Lotus just kept those tires alive. So we saw multiple times Raikkonen and Grosjean getting podiums out of nowhere, and some crazy drives like Bahrain 2012 and Germany 2013. They were extremely competitive. They could go for the win starting way back on the grid. So a car that has a good baseline and creep well tires is basically the key nowadays with those sensitive low wall tires in Pirellis. But the issue is that I saw the video that the race did about the brake coolings and the brake rotors on the McLaren, and I think that's so genius about it. It's not a gray area of the regulations, and it's not something illegal. It's totally genius what they're doing, using literally chemistry inside a Formula One car. How the hell they come up with that? That's genius. I'm speechless about that.
These people that work in the design department, I'm a mechanical design engineer. So if I come up with something that works, I give myself a bit of a pat on the back, like, yeah, that bolted together absolutely fine. But these engineers that sit there and come up with these things, and the one that I've always been intrigued by was the F duct on the 2010 McLaren.
Yeah.
How on earth a design engineer sits there in a room and goes, by the way, if you direct air this way, but because the driver's going to hold his knee over a hole in the cockpit, what? That's going to stall the rear wheel. Like, how people come up with that, and then looking at things like the barge boards, the floors of these cars, the brake ducts, as you say, and it's like magic. It's like science fiction. You don't think this thing's real that you're looking at. Like, no, there's no way that a human has gone into a CAD system and actually manufactured that. They found it on the surface of a distant planet and brought it back and put it on a car. That's what it is. So it's phenomenal what they come up with, and they'll sit at the computers for hours just trying to get 0.01 of a second. That's championships there if you can find that time. So yeah, it's pretty big. So I love it when there's a raft of updates and you can look over the cars and start to see minute differences that they bring. So we head into qualifying, and the first topic, Q1, sort of went by as you'd expect, but a few minutes in, Yuki Tsunoda has his big crash at Variante Villeneuve, and towards the end of the session, Colapinto at Tamburello. And straight away, obviously really glad that both Yuki Tsunoda and Franco Colapinto were okay, because I think as soon as you come to Imola, there's two names that spring to mind. Roland Ratzenberger, who lost his life at the same corner Tsunoda went off. Yes, it was shaped differently, but it was that corner. And Ayrton Senna, of course, who lost his life at Tamburello, again, shaped differently. So to see two very different but ferocious crashes and a lot of energy, and the drivers get out, walk away, and race on Sunday, hands out to the hands up to the safety once again of Formula One, that they survived that. So yeah, that was pretty scary, right? Watching that.
Yeah, credit where credit is due, because I think if we go back maybe into 2017, where the FIA started to put more focus on driver safety, circuit improvements, we at the time, I think it was unanimous, why bother with that? Sport's so safe. And they introduced the halo, and it was unanimously hated upon. Nobody liked it. Not the drivers, not the teams, especially the fans. We hate it. We thought it's hideous. A few teams managed to implement it in a way that was, easy on the eyes, but was still a humongous thing on the face. But a few incidents later, it all changed. Belgium 2018, Leclerc, Sauber at the top of Fernando Alonso's head on McLaren. That changed the subject. 2022, the flip that Zhou Guanyu had on Silverstone at the start of the race, he shouldn't be here. Then Roman Grosjean 2020, he got touched in the rear and went straight to the barrier in Bahrain. Those instances are extreme points of crashes. Yes, they are. especially the Racing Mugello in 2020. That was a wreck fest and it could have ended so much worse. Those cars, they have reinforced bodies on both the crash on the side pods. They have I forgot the name about it.
Crash
Forgive me.
structures.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
The crash structures on the side pods of the car. They have a reinforced nose. They have the halo. Now they have the Kevlar built helmet to withstand any kind of debris that come to their head. So yes, the cars are heavier, which is a shame. We would love them to be smaller, nimbler, more agile, faster, more enjoyable for races and catastrophically small tracks. But the same time is, where can we balance the safety that we have now? Because Yuki's crash was terrifying to look at it.
Yeah,
He
it
just
was.
clipped he just clipped the inside curb going to the variant Villeneuve, and the rear simply bounced a bit on the tarmac and spin it around and launch him into the gravel trap and flip it all over the tire barriers. So that was a scary shunt for Yuki. And Franco, he made a mistake. He touched the tires off the curb on the outside of the third part of the variant on the Tamburello. He put the tires on the gravel. He lost the control of the car, and instead of left the gas, just let the car roll. He kept his foot in, trying to hold it, and just lost it. It was a mistake from Franco's, but at the same time, his crash was his mistake, but also a testament on how safe those cars and the tracks now is. And it's a testament to Imola. Does not forgive mistakes. You get it wrong, one small tiny bit of the track is gonna cost you. Be it time or be the car. Is not a forgiving place. We know that from years back. We know this from now. So it's a really old school track. It's a shame that we might lose it for an undisclosed amount of time because I like Imola. But I'm not gonna say I'm hypocrite because I'm against multiple races on the same country. But I'll be the first one to raise a hand and say Italy has some of the best racetracks in the world. Monza, Imola, Mugello, Misano. There are some of the best racing tracks I have ever seen in my life. But having multiple races in the same country, USA for example, I think is too much. Having rotational dates is the way to go, but losing classic tracks and historical tracks that has meaning, that has history and pedigree on the sport, just to get another miserable hybrid-ish street circuit variant like the Madrid street circuit that we're gonna have, it's really putting a dent on the Formula One calendar. If you saw the post-race press conference with the podiums, Oscar said that it's a shame that we're losing Imola, and the same things that I said, because basically the whole calendar is becoming street circuits and it's not enjoyable to drive because of the size of the cars. Max echoed the same sentiment. So how can we actually make a championship that is enjoyable for the drivers to take the car and drive around the track, but is entertaining for us to watch? If every single time they're gonna take the cars to where the money's talking, but it's a street circuit. Those cars nowadays aren't built for street circuits. Let's go back 2017 tops. There was only three real street circuits on the calendar. Obviously, there's more, but we don't consider Melbourne a street circuit. We don't consider the circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal a street circuit, but both they are. They are in parks. The real street circuits that we consider was Monaco, Singapore, and Azerbaijan, which unanimously gained the love of the fans after his second edition in 2017. That was a race to watch, and I think it's beautiful. It exemplifies everything a street circuit needs to be. It needs to provide good racing, but also be challenging and interesting for us to watch. That castle section, I always admire all of it. It's the old town part of the Baku city, and we go there with the drivers, all the buildings coming on top of you. We go to the freaking castle where the I'm stupid meme became a thing from Shaw in 2019. So those kind of street circuits are nice, but the ones that we're going out are just dead. Miami is dead. Vegas, okay, we had the good race. So what? It's a freaking Monza with steroids. It's a pig on a format of a street circuit. The guys are just flat out. What's the challenge on that track, for crying out loud?
It's I think Formula One basically looked at Formula E in this regard. So Formula E, they set their stall on saying we're going to bring racing to the people. So we're going to do it on street tracks. We're going to do it in parks. We're going to do it in cities, and that makes sense for Formula E. And I think Formula One basically looked at that setup and went, actually, you haven't got to worry about car parking and infrastructure if you've got public transport, things arriving, trains, buses, whatever you can use to get to the track, or just walk if it's there. And I feel like that's what they've done. They've sort of stolen Formula E's thunder and gone, okay, Catalonia is a better track, but it's not anywhere near anything. So we need to go into Madrid instead. And I think you're spot on that we're losing touch with why we go racing in the first place. You know, Formula One isn't a product that they can market if they keep bringing it somewhere and the racing isn't good enough. So you can't just lose all of these brilliant racetracks. And as much as people say that Formula One outgrew Imola, I don't agree, because the tracks can be changed. You know, Imola proved that it changed. I remember the races in 2005, 2006, where we had Fernando Alonso, Michael Schumacher duking it out for the win, and it just was lap after lap of not being able to overtake. So they changed the last chicane. They took it out and turned it into a straight with DRS, and now
Yeah.
74 overtakes there was yesterday. So,
But here's the funny thing. That race in 2005, people always remember that duel of Schumacher, but the race overall was horrible. It was only 3 overtakes the whole damn race. And Schumacher never really, had a shot at passing Alonso because the track didn't allow it. As you put it, the chicane before the straight into the variant Tamburello was a nightmare. They came from Rivazza straight to the chicane with no momentum building. They couldn't launch a dive bomb like they can now in the variant Tamburello. And that was the whole point. Was, I think, what, 6, 7 laps of Schumacher trying to put a different line to pass Alonso on multiple parts of the circuit, but it didn't allow. And the reason Imola changed is because we talked before, as you said, Ratzenberger and Senna. They are the reason Imola changed. They are the reason multiple tracks changes from the 90s and the 2000s. And they are afraid to change again because nobody wants a black mark that big on its track. Imola is beloved. Yes, it is. It's a great track. It's classic. It's old school. It punishes mistakes. But it has this big ass dark cloud in it with the darkest day in the sports history. Darkest day, no, sorry. The darkest weekend in the sports history. So
I think it's very good then to turn around and go from a track that's got its dark days, that its final time that it hosted qualifying, it saw these big crashes and the drivers walked away. And we can never be complacent about how safe Formula One is. We never will. We'll never stop improving Formula One. And so we can be really glad about it. And at the same time, I don't think it's wrong that we stop going to a track or tracks stop hosting because they're scared of there being a problem, because problems can be resolved. And that's what the FIA do. That's their job, is to turn up at circuit and say, you're grade 1, you're grade 2. And if you're grade 2, here's what we suggest. Here's what you can do. You can put more runoff. You can put a chicane in if you need to. And as long as the track gives good racing, we should continue to see F1 there. So yeah, perhaps Formula One will be back to Imola in the future. But for now, let's get straight into McLaren, Piastri, Norris getting beaten by Max Verstappen this weekend. So Piastri won qualifying. He put it on pole, which in 2025 so far has been the place for McLaren to be. If they want to go on and win the race, you get pole, job's done. Especially in Friday here, they look so ominously quick. Red Bull said, look, we told you the updates aren't going to fix everything. We're well off. Come Sunday, they had race pace. There was a point where Verstappen was 10 seconds ahead of Norris because Piastri had taken his stop. That gap did not change for about 20 laps. Norris did not reel him in as you'd expect currently. And it wasn't a matter of Red Bull's tyres going off or McLaren's tyres off going off more. That was pure race pace. That Verstappen was that quick. So were you surprised to see such race pace from Red Bull Verstappen?
Actually, no, because if you look back when the introduction of the ground effect regulations came in 2022, Red Bull was ominously quick on Imola every single time. 22, 24, now 25 was a different shape those two previous years. Yes, it was. But something caught my eye with the way the camera work was around the Red Bull car. I was thinking, why does this car look similar to something of the past? Red Bull is rescuing old designs and re-implemented it again. If you literally take a photo of the RB18 and put it aside of the RB21, basically the side pods are almost identical. There's no difference at all. They are regressing designs to the ones that actually work. So you think like a 3 years old design from Red Bull, it's still freaking quick. That's how ridiculous those engineers can be. How something that is that old on a sport that's constantly evolving, because we know that the development war never stops in Formula One. It never does. So how can a development that's made 3 years ago on the beginning of those regulations still be that powerful to give the extra nudge Red Bull needed to Max get the win? But I'll be the one to get a disclaimer here. Max only got the win because Piastri screwed up. If you take a look at the onboard of Max during the start, he got a good launch off the line. Russell got an even better one because he had the slipstream effect from Piastri. But the problem here starts on the braking for the first corner of the variant umbrella. Piastri left the highway open for Max. And Max has the same mentality as Senna did. If you no longer go for the gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. He left the gap and Max went for it. Piastri did not close the door for Max. Afterwards, he said he was comfortable with the space he left. He thought he judged it right. He didn't. If you look at the onboard, Piastri was almost all of the car was focused on blocking Russell. Max has a clear line into the outside of the first corner of the variant umbrella. That's how he took the lead. Piastri screwed up right there. That defined the race. A mistake, a misjudgment, let's say. It wasn't a mistake. He misjudged the position of the car to the braking. Instead of putting the car in the middle, okay, maybe Russell could have go for a move on the inside, but he still would have the preference of the second leg of the variant and would push him wide and still kept the lead. He could have done that. He didn't. It cost him the lead. And if we look at Yuki's performance, let's not forget, he crashed quali, he started from the pit lane, from damaged components, and still managed to get P10. Had he not did any of those things, maybe Yuki could have been similar in terms of pace than Max. I know that's a stretch because there's the Max effect in here, obviously, but Yuki was also really competitive throughout the race. So there's something that Red Bull found on this particular track, but I'm not getting my hopes up because, like I spoke before, this can be an outlier because it suits Red Bull better.
Yeah, I completely agree. Going back to turn one, Piastri said he braked too early, and that was clear. I said before the race, I said he has to cover the inside line. That has to be his priority. And once he had that covered, you expected, and I expected, that he'd won the battle into turn one. But when he braked too early, he left that gap. And Max Verstappen, you don't leave Max Verstappen any room. It's been my criticism of Norris, that if he goes wheel to wheel, he still races the old way, where he's respectfully leaves a gap and expects Verstappen to do the same, and he doesn't do that. And that's where Piastri's been so good, driving from the inside, the apex of one, out to the outside and saying, you're either braking or you're going to go across the gravel. But because he braked so early, he didn't allow himself to do that same line. So Verstappen capitalized. That's what he does. You can't give him an inch of room because he turns it into a mile. And from then on, I thought I mean, some of the luck went his way, but performance-wise, he was exemplary there. He said afterwards the word execution. They executed a perfect weekend from that point on. They got everything right. They didn't get drawn into everything else going on behind them, and left McLaren no real answers in a weekend where I think they did better because they actually split the strategies this time round. You know, Piastri pitted, Norris didn't. They in Suzuka they got caught because they did the same thing. So I was kind of glad about that at least, and we didn't get to see that play out, unfortunately. But I was looking forward to that strategic battle. You know, the 2-stop versus the 1-stop. Again, I feel like the 1-stop was the way to go. Did you agree with that? You know, if we had a race without any safety car intervention, the VSC that came before it, 1-stop, 2-stop, do you think that Verstappen and Norris had the right answer, or do you think Piastri coming through would have taken this win?
That's really the $1 million question, because the teams did not make a lot of simulations using the hard tires during the practice session. We saw them most of the time try to figure out the soft tire and the medium tires, the difference between them. There was little to no teams using the hard tires apart from Aston Martin. And that's the issue. When they don't simulate with all the tires to have a clear picture on race simulations, tire wear, and thermal efficiency on those tires, how can we, theoretically simulate the race without the safety cars and the troubles we had if we didn't have a clear picture on who's stronger on which tire? We didn't. And the problem is FIA and Pirelli chose to introduce the C6 compound on the effort to make racing more variable, increasing the strategic effect on it. It didn't work this time around because of the safety cars. And it might not even happen in Monaco, because Monaco is not abrasive. Monaco is constantly getting repaved, is constantly getting treatment. So when there's the Monaco Grand Prix, it's almost better than a regular racing track, because there's no abrasive surface, there's no undulations, there's nothing. It's like a plowed place. It's completely smooth. There's an expression that people use in Brazil. It's like the butt of a baby. It's smooth and silk.
It's a nice metaphor. If I ever go to Monaco, just to see whether it really is. Yeah, we're not expecting much degradation in Monaco. They don't get fast enough either. They don't get the speeds required to really scrub the tires. There's no real super quick punishing long corners around there. They're all short, sharp brake, accelerate and go. So yeah, I don't think the 2-stops change is going to do much there. But yeah, it was a bit of a shame not to see the strategic battle play out as much in Imola. It could have been very interesting, but as I say, $1 million question. We'll hope to have that answered at the race after Monaco. I hope, where we might see more of that, whether it starts to play more again to McLaren if this one was Verstappen orientated. But I thought he did really well, Verstappen. But one person who I thought did really well and was critical of his team, Charles Leclerc, was the first person to pit, and he got such a good undercut. You know, he started this race 11th. He battled his way past Pierre Gasly. He pits, and the next thing you know, he emerges ahead of George Russell, and you're thinking he's a net 4th place in this race now. And at the end of the race, he finished 6th. I mean, the Ferrari updates didn't work as well. They had a tough race, and he's there going, oh God, why does this always happen to me? Like, the VSC didn't work to him. He didn't have tires. He wanted to pit for tires. They literally said, we haven't got tires. But I think on reflection, he was a bit harsh. I think Ferrari actually had a very good Sunday. And I think they should be happy with that. Hamilton, of course, 4th, behind the 2 McLarens. Again, just solidifying what was a really strong weekend for them. So yeah, it was tough to see him so critical, but 6th was good, right? 6th was good for Leclerc.
I don't judge Charles for being that critical of Ferrari, because we have to go back to the beginning of the season. expectations were sky high because last year they fought McLaren for the Constructors' World
Yeah.
Championships. They won multiple races instead of just one or maybe two at tops. They were consistently quick. The car was good. This year, it's not the case. Ferrari is not looking good on any point. Like the only moment Ferrari actually looked good on something was the sprint in China, where Hamilton got pole and led the whole sprint. That was the only highlight moment for Ferrari this whole year. Then came Imola, the first home race for the team, and qualifying was a nightmare. They got it
Mm.
wrong. The tires completely overheated. They were complaining about the car dancing too much on the corners, not having confidence, especially on their brakes. The balance was all over the place. They got it wrong. The strategy for the qualifying, they got it wrong. But they flip it all around on the race. It was a mixed weekend. Yes, it was. And they got lucky at the same time because the VSC didn't work properly for Shaw, but it worked for them to bunch up, have fresher tires, and go for it. The race pace on the Ferrari was great. Lewis took a while to engage. He went back a bit. He started P12. He stayed P13 for a long time. Shaw was the one moving forward. I think in less than 12 laps, I want to say, he was already inside the top 10. It was really difficult to overtake an Imola because the dirty air is bigger than ever before on these regulations. But Ferrari is getting stronger on race pace. But my issue with that is, are they stronger because Imola helped mask the car weakness, or they actually found the sweet spot of the car to work on multiple tracks?
Again, more questions rather than answers, unfortunately, from this weekend. Yeah, they got a bit lucky, didn't they, in some regards? But it's certainly a good question of like where this car is going to come from, because we keep expecting the challenge. And to say they were in a battle with Albon in the Williams, I mean, Williams are having a good season, so they should be
Oh, yes.
happy with that. But as you say, we can't be critical of them. They just want the best that's going to come from this, so they want to be fighting for race wins, and there they are, sort of fourth and sixth, which to Ferrari is a failure, especially as you say in their home race. So yeah, it's difficult to know where they are, where they ought to be race by race. But fear not, I hope Monaco's going to be better for them. I feel like that's going to be their track, perhaps a bit more, but we'll see.
I really don't know, if I'm being honest, because Ferrari is such a diva in terms of car that we don't even know what to expect from Monaco. In a way, that's interesting, but at the same time, that's scary because Monaco, you can overtake. If you don't get the strategy right for the pit stop, your race is over. So you need to nail everything on Monaco, maximize everything on the practice sessions. So when we get to quali, they need to perform. They need to have another 2024 session in there. Okay, Shaw took the lap out of his pocket last year because McLaren was a better car. There was no denying that. On that race, Monaco last year, McLaren was the better car. Shaw is the one that took that pole lap out of his leaves, and nobody saw coming. And he did a perfect race last year. But it's not the same car. Last year, it was well documented. The strength of that Ferrari was slow peak corners, the treatment of his tires, and how smooth the power delivery of the car was. So it was a perfect storm for Monaco. The problem is we are not getting the same vibes from Ferrari now. The car is a diva. It doesn't have is not well balanced. It's overheating tires like crazy. Doesn't get the right aero balance. Is not good on slow corners. And how the hell can you expect drivers to have confidence on Monaco if they can really properly brake? It's more Hamilton than Leclerc, but at the same time, if a driver is not confident to brake the car, what do you expect him to do on a track like Monaco?
Yeah, it could be tricky. As I say, I'm hopeful. I think it will be better, but there isn't that big braking zone, and part of Monaco is dancing the car. So if it's a little bit on a knife edge, then it could be could perhaps be better. And sort of touched on the fight with Williams, and we saw that standoff with Leclerc and Albon, and it was kind of funny, you know, we had this side by side into turn one. Albon runs off, Hamilton sneaks through, and then the next round, Albon gets round Leclerc, and I thought, oh, that's a bit. It's like very old hand Formula One. You know, you hold up someone, let your teammate get through, and go, oh, okay. And the FIA said no decision necessary yet because he's already got through. So I feel like Leclerc was a bit lucky because he did get the call, let him back through, and I'm not sure whether he let him through or just got overtaken and then went, well, I did. So yeah, it was quite interesting with that. And again, Leclerc's comments of, oh, so this is how we go racing, because I've said on this podcast that the three people that I think have got the racing rules currently down to a T are Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Oscar Piastri. So suddenly Leclerc is starting to cause a bit of doubt in my mind. Like, has he? Because it was pretty clear that Albon should have been given room, and he just squeezed him off from where he was. I thought it was the right call. You know, he should have given it back, and we're kind of lucky that, you know, it worked in their favor anyway because Hamilton got through. But yeah, that was Leclerc on older tires. It was kind of inevitable that Albon would get through, and a strong weekend for Albon and for Williams. It was, and very quickly before we go at the end of this, we got our first chance to see the McLaren drivers go wheel to wheel. So after the safety car, we hear the radio, Norris saying, hey, I've got new tires, Piastri doesn't. Maybe you want to think about switching positions. And I think McLaren got this right. Let them race. It was clear Verstappen was gone. They let them go, and yeah, it was good. I was so tense. I didn't breathe for about 20 seconds. I don't think my heart went for 20 seconds whilst they were going down that straight. Piastri got a lot of curb, and he started to get loose, started to head towards Norris, and I thought, here it comes, front wing brake. You know, we're losing, we're not scoring any points. And no, luckily, papaya rules preserved. They both got through. Good to see a bit of on-track battling between those two.
Yeah, you're right. And coming back to what you said before about drivers who have nailed these racing regulations, I think it's Max and Oscar. Charles is hit and miss with this kind of thing. Sometimes he nails it and races with the regulations on his back. He knows exactly what he's doing. And sometimes it's like he has no idea what he's doing on track. So I don't know in terms of Charles, but Oscar and Max are the ones that literally got this to a T. The example is his move in Jeddah on the first corner, Piastri pushing Max wide. That was brilliant because it's literally is the shot of the season where, in my opinion, is the welcoming car for Oscar Piastri saying, not here, buddy. I'm just like you. You want to push me? I'm going to crash into you. That's what happened. That's the message Oscar is sending, because Max do not race the same he does Lando. He knows he can push Lando. I don't like to say this because it sounds harsh, sounds like I'm a hater, but Lando is not as strong mentally as he needs to be if he wants to get a fight against Max. The reason I say this all the time is because Lando has never been in this position with real pressure. There's pressure for you to perform as a rookie. There's pressure for you to perform when you have a competitive car, but there's pressure when you have to fight against the best driver in the world for a world championship. That's the difference. Lando,
it's a different ball game altogether, isn't it? And
yeah,
to go back briefly as well to the point you say about racing people differently, and it's not to say that Verstappen just gives more respect to someone or anything like that. It's purely like when I play football on a Thursday, and I go up against someone, I'm defending or I'm attacking and going around them. You think, oh, okay, that's such and such. I know that if I do this, they won't track me, or if I do this, they're gonna get an elbow out. So I need to think differently, and that's how you do it. You race everyone individually, and it's one of the updates to the F1 game that they brought out a few years ago. Like, you race against Max Verstappen, he'll drive you over to the line, and you start to go, hang on, go around someone else, and they'll give you more room, and that's it. You just have to be aware of who you're racing, how much room you want to give them, how much elbow you want to put out, because you know it's equal respect, but it's not equal racing.
Yeah, you're right. And here's the thing: Max will always race everybody the same way. The difference is how he's gonna treat it. We know that there's this old mentality of drivers where you either sink or swim. That's the old school mentality for drivers. And I think before Max, the last guy that was like this is Fernando Alonso. Nobody can question that he got into Formula One, a period where you have to perform, otherwise you're done.
Yeah,
There's no middle term.
I feel like it's like a baton that got handed on. The first driver I remember being like that was Michael Schumacher,
Yeah,
and then he handed it to Alonso, who handed it to Vettel. Hamilton kind of took it and went, I'm going to treat it differently. And then Verstappen took it off him and said, no, that's not how you do it.
yeah,
Hamilton was a bit of an outlier. He said, no, I can win by other means. But you've always got this personality in Formula One that says, like, I want to stand up and be the person that you race against, and that you're going to have to come and match.
yeah,
I'm not racing on your terms. You're racing on my terms. And
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting now thinking who might take that baton off Verstappen. So yeah, a really good weekend of his, and leading me on to my final two questions that I always ask at the end of a race review. I'll let you go first on both points. So Louis, I want your driver of the day or driver of the weekend specifically in Imola, and highlight of the weekend, please.
Driver of the weekend. I'll probably go with somebody that went under the radar because the performance was really good. I'm going with Alex Albon.
I you stole my person. You stole my vote. I've got two this week, so that's okay. Right, so you're go Alex Albon.
Okay, I would say Alex is one of the guys that I'll say is driver of the weekend, and the other, for the way he responded, was probably gonna be Yuki for the
Okay.
whole contest of the weekend. Crash on quali, pushing unnecessarily fast. He even admitted himself was a mistake and unnecessary to push that hard too soon. Because you don't need to be on P1 to pass the Q2 or Q from Q1 to Q2. You just need to be inside the top 15. There's no need to push unnecessarily. He did at that moment, it cost him, but that didn't affect him. He reset, he went from the race and got a point. That I think it's a building block for Yuki going forward because he's getting more comfortable with the Red Bull. And that's the thing that I'm looking forward the most. Him developing inside of the Red Bull, feeling more comfortable, but at the same time, it's so annoying that people are looking at Hajar and praising him, thinking, oh, he's the next best thing in Red Bull. He's not. The difference is nobody has expectations on Isaac Hajar. Nobody does. The one person who say he does, you don't. That's BS. You don't have expectations on Isaac Hajar because he was the last choice. He wasn't meant to be brought up on the Red Bull program for Racing Bulls because it was said by Marco himself. He's like Yuki. He's a time bomb. He's way too emotional. He's way too overreactive to things. He's not overreacting now because Racing Bulls is not Red Bull. There's no
No.
pressure inside Racing Bulls.
And I think Yuki's the best example to be able to for them to turn around to Isaac and say, look, we had to rein Yuki in, and now he's at Red Bull. You do the same. We know you're at race 7. I think this is already like you're at race 7. We're not expecting this by race 8 or race 9, but you know, you carry on going the same way, the same progression, then you know what's in store for you. So it allows him to continue on and do what he's doing. Unlike the other seat, Liam Lawson is obviously under pressure. Like I've given Franco Colapinto, Jack Doohan the same praise. Like you have a crash, to be able to get back in the car when you've got so much pressure on you, you know, everything's saying you're losing your seat, as he has now to Franco Colapinto, to get back in, to go racing, to make up positions, and to undo a Saturday like that. I think that is a good shout. So my choice for driver of the day was going to be Alex Albon, as you've taken him and Yuki Tsunoda. That's okay. My second choice has to be Max Verstappen because as I say, I think he executed just a perfect weekend, and any win where you have that overtake that he had into turn 1, Zach Brown described it as a great pass. I think it was even better than that. I thought it was just such a Max thing to do. Just you've left me a little bit of room. I'm taking it and some. And then he ran and hid from there. He had great pace and yeah, absolutely grabbed this win. So finally, a highlight of the weekend for you.
I have three picks for a highlight of the weekend. The first one is obviously it's real. It's not fake. Williams came here as the force to be reckoned with in Imola. They are a team that's literally knocking at the heels of Ferrari. It's no fluke. They are here. And the thing that bothers me, if they choose to develop the car just a tiny bit, they might be getting forward, but they already said that the focus is for 2026. But
Yeah,
what is giving me that much happiness to see is that Williams are finally competitive again. After years of struggle, after years of reconstruction, after years of being a joke, of being something to be ashamed of, now they're getting their flowers. And I'm so glad that this weekend showed that they are performing. It's not just varying to weekend. They are the fifth best team outside the top four. The other ones that the weekend highlights for me is obviously Max Verstappen overtake into turn
yeah,
one. That was simply masterful driving. There's no denying that. That's the trade of the greats. They find those spots to take advantage of everything they have and maximize. He maximized the car on quality and he maximized his race with the one opportunity. It was wide open and he said, I'm not missing it. I'm going for it. And the personal highlight for me was obviously a bit of a painful one as well during the race is Aston Martin getting P5 with Fernando Alonso. As you know, I am a Fernando Alonso fan and I am an Aston Martin fan. But that hurts. That hurts because we have the high on qualifying. We already know Aston Martin is kind of a qualifying car. But during the race, you see him getting brought back to the back of the field time and time again. And his radio with frustration saying this is gonna be a torture, is a wreck, the unluckiest driver in the flipping world. Geez, that hurts because we know who Fernando Alonso is. And he's not just a simple driver. He is a freak of nature. We have to be honest. Because how a guy in his middle to late 40s is still able to perform like he does, and people think, oh, he's not that good. Man, he raced in Dakar and it impresses everybody in it. He won twice the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He is a world endurance champion. He's a two-time Formula One world champion with the biggest longevity I've ever seen in the sport. And he's so unlucky this season because the shame is people never look the nuances. They never go further than the cold numbers. If you look at the numbers, Alonso's season is awful. Didn't score a point. Stroll scored, I think, 14 points, something like this. And he's nothing. And we don't like Lance Stroll. We think he's a waste of space. He's a placeholder. He's taking opportunities from people who actually deserve to be there. We don't like him. But when he's performing and Fernando Alonso is not in results of points, people start to think, is Fernando Alonso actually coming for age? No. That's the blunt answer. Fernando Alonso is not washed. Fernando Alonso is not done. He still is fast as all hell. It's Fernando Alonso, a freak of nature. But he doesn't have the car. I'm always going to be bringing back 2023 because that's reality. Give him a freaking competitive car. It doesn't need to be a car that fighting for championship. If it is, wonderful. That's the storyline of the lifetime. Fernando Alonso going for a championship again. That's my fantasy. Bruh, I would love to see this. And in 2023, he got podiums, competitive races, and that was great to see. Can he do that again? Most certainly he can. But the
I
thing
think
is,
that's the 2026 project, isn't it? With Adrian Newey at the helm, what can he do? So yeah, fingers crossed for that for him, because that would be such a story, wouldn't it, if he was back to the front, even just to get one more win, if it's not a championship.
I don't even mind if he doesn't get another championship, because I think 2023 was a validation of his talent and it changed the perspective of his career. But if Aston Martin and Honda nails the regulation like the rumors said they do, and Fernando get finally that win number 33, Jesus, it's gonna be the biggest plot twist in the history of Formula One, because nobody went such a long period without a race win, and it's half of Fernando Alonso's career, and that's scary. That's really scary. Fernando is the most experienced driver in history with 400 plus races. It's 200 plus races that he hasn't won a Grand Prix. That's a scary statistic.
And he's still got, yeah, absolutely. As you say, a lot. I think Lance Stroll is a very solid driver. I wouldn't say any more than that, and that's why he's got the points he's got so far, and he's doing a better job this year than he has the last two. But freak of nature is the way you describe Alonso, isn't it? He's the guy. He's your guy in the seat that's going to push this team forward. If 2026 is the car, that's the guy that is going to bring home the bacon. So yeah, look forward to seeing how that plays out. That's a very good point, because I've been very critical of Aston Martin, saying, where are they? What are they doing? Are they just waiting for the 2026 regulations? And then they bring out this update package, and it's like, oh, hang on, okay, maybe they haven't given up on 25 just yet. But so hopefully.
Here's the thing. I'm confused about Aston. I'm always am. I am a fan of Aston Martin, but at the same time, I'm not blind to it. They got the wind tunnel recently operating, and this new upgrade came from the wind tunnel. But you got to be questioning, hang on a second. You made the 2023 car renting the wind tunnel from Mercedes. Then why you make a crappy car for the start of this season, and now all of a sudden the upgrade work because you have a new wind tunnel? That's the thing I don't really get. How they can build a good baseline car like the AMR 23, but knowing how to develop the car throughout the whole damn year, they get slower, just like in 2024. But now they feel like they finally understood the package, and they brought the upgrades that was already on the pipeline. But is this really something to look forward, or was just another false dawn like we have seen multiple times?
The $1 million question right there. I'm going to wrap up really quickly. My highlight of the weekend has to go to safety. Touched on it. You know, like, we don't want to see anyone hurt. So yeah, seeing Tsunoda's crash, seeing him walk away, brilliant. You know, we can never understate how important safety is. And again, coming out after this is our Indy 500 preview, and seeing the crashes over there, and just how big crashes are these days. And we're so lucky that we get to see drivers walk away from. So yeah, it can't be understated. You know, safety in motorsport, it will never be safe, but we can make it better and better, and that's where we're at. So that's my highlight, that we've got drivers walking away from these crashes, and long may that can continue whilst we have got crashes. But for now, Louis, thank you so much for joining me once again to review the San Marino. I'm not going to go through the proper long name. San Marino / Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. It's been a pleasure once again. Thank you so much for joining me. For everyone listening, thank you so much for listening in. And as I say, the next thing you'll hear is a very special Indy 500 preview. Look for that in the coming days. And yeah, after that, we've got the Monaco review. So until then, thank you so much, and have a good day.